Good evening, folks. This is Bob, Broadcast Delhi. Today I'm starting to do two sections. The first section is quick news with a little bit of views, some news that I think is important, and the second part is deep drill analysis of what I've been talking about, the wheat cheat. So let's start. What do we have here? Shishir Gupta writes, LAC Army ready for winter endurance. I'm glad we are. There's another one. DC correspondent writes, India moves tanks to eastern Ladakh. Moving from what's happening with China, let's see what's the other news. As I mentioned yesterday, there's obviously something happening in the BJP, and there is news. Ram Madhav, Muralidhar out. Muralidhar out. Tejaswi, youth chief in reject BJP lineup. And Tejaswi, the first thing he says today from the Bangalore is the center of terrorism. You can see where this one's going, folks. Absolutely. Then, as I mentioned yesterday, that if we, depends on what the government does with this Vodafone verdict that has come against them, will decide whether what the world thinks about the investment environment. But as I said, foolish bureaucrats are not difficult to find in India, right? So that's exactly what we didn't want to happen is not going to happen. Center will contest arbitration award in Vodafone case. Will reach out to global funds to calm investor fear. You really can't calm. Now, what do you think? If you hear Piyush Goyal talk, anybody's calm. Calming happens through actions, not through just talk. This is what we keep doing most of the time. Another thing that we got to keep our eyes on, Sudan is latest focus of US efforts to improve Arab ties with Israel. Sudan offers us an alternative to Djibouti. Important to note. Another thing that is with geopolitical implications, fighting erupts between Armenia and Azerbaijan over disputed territories. 16 killed and over 100 injured. Armenia claims it shot down Azerbaijan helicopters. This is one of the longest wars, not in the very near recent past. It's been there, late 80s, I think. As far as the border is concerned, you have dig in for the long haul, Chinese not going soon. This is what I had mentioned yesterday. China asked ISI to up violence in Valley. Here I want to point out, folks, is that every time we shame Pakistan for terrorism, if we are not willing and able to name and shame China, we are not going to get the results we want. Absolutely not. We're going up a slippery pole with no results. While this is happening on the border, India-Japan naval drill aims at China. Interesting. Two of the latest ships of the Japanese Navy, or not the Navy as it's called, the Defense Forces, immediately, this is like really good messaging from Suga and good messaging from India. The world's going after China. China accused of imprisoning 500,000 Tibetans in labor camps. Scary thing of what a party for the Rajpaksas. And what's scary is, he says on the SLPP's future role, Mr. Basil Rajpaksa famously remarked that he would like to model the party on the Chinese Communist Party and the Bharatiya Janata Party in India, the best two. And let me just say, this will be a monstrosity, an absolute monstrosity. Then in the UK Times, Lucy Fisher writes, China blamed for Barbados ditching Queen. Then you have another one that says, China razed thousands of mosques, report says. Business news, Reliance Jio may shake up entry-level phone market, important, and going to use some of the local manufacturers to do it. Chinese investment proposals in limbo, rightly so. But we should actually ensure that the investment in stuff that really does not have strategic interests continues to happen with a little bit of extra scrutiny. Motorola Mobility in talks to make $1 billion fools in India. Lenovo, important. What is China going to do? Chinese banks to target Anil's global assets. That's really funny. And as the strategic decoupling happens with China, Japan seeks to rely less on Chinese. This is an article in the Wall Street Journal, and the subset of that is, in a delicate dance, Japan seeks to rely less on the Chinese. Yeah, India must offer that alternative. Unfortunately, so far, there is a huge gap between action and talk. What's happening here? This is very, very disconcerting. Insurance freeze hits US supply chain. Who would have thought? Remember AIG. Then you have NTPC plans industrial parks at power plants invites EOIs. Land is a possibility for investment. Most of our PSUs are sitting on surplus land. Get rid of it. And great move. If you remember, I said yesterday, the Embraer plant is in play, and why is India not actioning it? The very next day, there is an article that says government may acquire commercial business unit of Embraer. Fantastic. Remember AIG, when this report is read, LIC, GIC, NIC, too big to fail. Remember AIG, 2008, folks. We are heading there because the way this government has been robbing GIC and LIC, we may run into a huge problem if the markets correct themselves. Wall Street Journal says, in India, hunger trumps any aspiration. Nations, economic woes amid pandemic forcing engineers, MBAs and teachers to dig ditches. They're all going to Manrega. The Indian government, EV push, government plans 4.6 billion in incentives for battery makers. This is the direction to go. India now needs to get control of the lithium mines, which is critical. Then it says Mazagon docks, solid play on India's growing defense focus. I personally think that most of our docks should be monetized, but not through floating in the stock market, because that is really no value add. They should be sold strategically to maybe docks and companies in the United States, Japan and Korea. Here's another one. India invites Israeli firms to meet 130 billion weapons need. I think this has to take off. Very important. Now, what is the reports that are happening in the Khalij Times? UAE slams Turkey stance on Israel. Then you have India remains a top draw for Gulf investors. Very important. Then you have a talk about Indo-Farm breaks new ground. Very critical. As you put Israel, United Arab Emirates and India, it is make sure that we are part of this agricultural revolution that's going to happen in the United Arab Emirates. Then another thing, DeFaza, Israel Chambers Inc. deal to foster business relationship. Not only that, DP Ports has also done a deal with the ports in Israel. Keep watching the space. And more after the break.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We have often heard this since our childhood. Our grandmas and grandpas have always taught us to adopt natural ways of nourishing our bodies. There was a time when people did not even know about the packaged pills and bottled syrups. All they had was homemade natural remedies and Nani Maa ke mashhoor nuskhe. Sada Jeevan brings back to you the times we did not rely on artificial medicines to keep our bodies going. We believe in natural herbs and homemade remedies because the body deserves only purity. Think of natural products. Think of Sada Jeevan.